Understand, question this narrative, question the things that are coming out. What is the agenda? What's the agenda behind the money going to where it is? New York Post has come out with an interesting story claiming that billionaire George Soros has funneled more than 50 million to a network of Iran sympathizer groups whose members have gained quite a significant sway within the Biden White House and defanging US sanctions on Tehran. It's interesting because he's got his Soros Open Society Foundations, and he's given a staggering 46.7 million to the 2016 International Crisis Group, and they are a bit of known as a bit of a think tank for the alleged Iranian plot to manipulate US policy. What's interesting is Robert Malley, the former US Special Envoy to Iran, is now under FBI investigation for his alleged mishandling of classified material. And he was actually the ICG's president until he joined the Biden administration in 2021. So it's really interesting to see some of the stuff that's coming out of this. And many of them, it's been rumored before by other authors of books on Soros, biographical writings, that he is a big funder of a lot of these activist type groups that have caused disruption in Western society. And so it seems like his agenda is one of socialism or communism. He gets behind the groups that are kind of somewhat linked to his way of thinking, and he funds them and funnels his money through that. That's what's been suggested by many reporters on this.
I tend to agree with them, to be honest. I'm seeing someone who has a very much an anti-American agenda when I look at Soros and what he funds and the way he goes about himself. And you know, this infiltration into government through the back door, I think it's always existed, but obviously it's a lot more visible than any other time in history.
Yep. What I've also done, so for the people listening on the radio, jump over to Edge Radio Australia on the Facebook page. Yep. I've actually posted a link to that article. So thanks for sending that through for us, Shaq. So I've posted the link to the New York Post article that's actually listed everything. So Brilliant. Just to be clear, this is not us making this shit up. Like there's actual documented reports about this. Sure. So I have to give the credit to Derek. Like his ability to hunt down things like this is actually kind of amazing. So thank you, Derek, for all your journalistic expertise in these sort of situations. Now, with someone like George Soros, with as much money as he's got, and I don't know how I feel about this one, because Iran is a country of their own. George is free to do what he wants with his money. I don't think we should be telling him what he can do with it. But Iran's got some very, very clear connections with Hamas over in Israel at the moment. Yep. But George is Jewish.
What's going on there?
So it just, I don't get it. I'll be honest with you.
I think some of the issues that had been with some of these kind of donations is that people who have been in that space have actually gone on to get either government jobs or they've come out of government jobs and into these organizations. So the traffic between people, and I don't mean human trafficking, I'm just talking about people movement, just to be clear. But what else we get is people who've gotten jobs after they've left these kind of organizations. So we noticed this with like some of big tech, right? In what came out with the Twitter files that Elon Musk put out there, it was interesting to see that some of the people that Twitter had hired or allegedly hired were people who'd worked in government positions that had to do with, you know, censorship, security, all this kind of stuff. And now they're moving there. And I think that's what's raising the issue, is that people are using money for huge political influence. Now, who doesn't use that? You know, anytime you give a political donation, you are using that for political influence. You're trying to give a party or candidate or some description a boost in terms of their campaigning. I think when it starts disrupting society to this level on such a coordinated effort, people are just waking up to it. And it's being aware, why is there so much disruption in the world? How much of the activists that we see in the streets and on the media or the alternative media are actually funded by someone getting paid to be out there to wave the banner? I find it interesting, some of the excerpts that you find lately, where people are doing the chant, the pro-Palestinian chant, and then when people question, do you have to know, okay, what, it's the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. They're going, well, which river are you talking about? Which sea are you actually talking about? And the people who are chanting this don't know. They have no idea as to what they're actually saying with that chant. And I think that's something that's a big wake-up call, is like, you can go with the narrative on these sort of things, but you've really got to sit back and question, hey, what is it that's being presented? What is being said? Also on that is when authorities start saying stuff. Like we saw recently, the police get up there and say, look, if you know anyone who's saying stuff that is very conspiracy type theory, you should kind of report that into us. That's a fascinating admission for me when I look at that and go, what's the fear behind a commentary like that? Why are they saying that? What are they concerned about? And I think that's what we just start helping people understand, question this narrative, question the things that are coming out. What is the agenda? What's the agenda behind the money going to where it is?
So why... I have to get into politics on this side of things, because to me, any donations of this amount isn't about just freely spending your money. It becomes a political interference. So we'll just quickly hit on the river to the sea. That's pretty much a Palestinian chant to destroy all Israelis within Israel. Okay. They just want to mass murder a lot. To me, that's a call of action. It's the same as saying gas the Jews. Yeah. That's a call of action. That's genocide. So I think a lot of people, and you hit the nail on the head, they don't understand what they're actually doing. We had organised a political event not we, Edge Radio, but I was a part of an event about 6 months ago where we had a very questionable political leader over in WA. And we found out that the protesters that rocked up to the event were getting $15 an hour paid cash. And like, my question is, A, did they declare the income? Because I guarantee you most of them were on some sort of Centrelink benefit. Mm-hmm. And B, it's below minimum wages. So minimum wages is $23 an hour. So the organizer of the event were openly breaking industrial relation laws as well. So why weren't they being investigated? Like, there's always two sets of rules, one for them and one for us. Yeah. And then when you start getting to that scale of things, and I've also just going down conspiracy theory lane here. So the riots in America over the what's his name? The guy that threatened the baby. I can't breathe. Oh
yeah. Black Lives Matter, obviously.
Yeah,
George Floyd.
Yeah. That's one. Floyd. So apparently, the reason there were so many bricks readily available for the protest is because apparently George Soros organised to have a whole heap of pallets of bricks delivered into the main street the night before the protest.
And I've seen the video of this. Okay, and I don't know who paid for it. I didn't know that bit, but I've seen physically. Okay, why do you suddenly just in the middle of roundabouts and through the middle of a city have all these pallets of bricks? It's insane.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, at that point, it's no longer about just spending your money how you choose. That's inciting political unrest. And when you've got a country like Iran who's openly supported terrorist organizations like Hamas, does this then fall into the realms of terrorism, funding terrorism?
As far as I'm concerned, it does. I look, and I find it. Is it sort of was it an insurrection?
So again,
like we're going to play with these. No.
I haven't read the article yet, so I don't know how the money's been gone there, under what pretenses that has been done. So I want to throw this over to Shaquille, because he's done a hell of a lot more travel through that region than I have. So this is just me looking out. I could be totally wrong. I'm happily to be corrected on this one. So Shaq, your thoughts?
So I haven't been to Iran. I know a number of Iranians, though. Very nice people, the ones that I know.
True.
Look, well, Mick Mahmood is Iranian,
and Beverly Hills is may as well be little Iran. I mean, the Iranians have taken over Beverly Hills, and there's a very big presence of them there. Look, I'm going to say this. I don't understand why people who are born here, who know nothing about Palestine and Israel, are acting so passionate about things, river to the sea and all these other things that they're chanting. If you're not even from there, if you're from there, I can understand. I don't agree with you, but I can understand. If you have some advanced knowledge of the area, I get it. Sure. But if you're not even from there, if you're some white kid from Vic Park, will you just go home? Just go home. You know what you're talking about, dude.
Go play some League of Legends in your mum's basement.
advocate for Western Australia to be a republic. I mean, we went to England, or before me, went to England and said, hey, we want to be a republic. And England said, yeah, get back in your box, shut up. You're going to be part of Australia. So, I mean, advocate for that or something instead. I'll just say this in very reluctant defense of the movement. I understand that Palestinians feel, and they've expressed this over a very long time now, that they feel that the land that is rightfully theirs has been taken from them unfairly. And what they have done over decades and decades is they have rejected the idea of a two-state solution. And yet the West keeps pushing a two-state solution. And it was really up until fairly recently that I used to say, yeah, we should have a two-state solution. And it was only after I sort of thought, why do I think there should be a two-state solution? Because what? Because the government tells me that? What do I know about the place? So after sort of looking at it a little bit more, I go, well, okay, maybe a two-state solution isn't what's going to work there. Maybe a one-state solution would be better, but how is that going to work? And I think if you're going to have any kind of rational conversation about Israel and Palestine, I think people need to talk about what are the potential solutions. We know that two-state is one of the solutions, or one state is one of the solutions. How would both of those things work? Is there any other alternatives, and how would they work? And what is going to be something that's acceptable and agreeable to both Palestinians and Israelis? But more importantly, the issue, I don't think, is going to be decided by Palestinians and Israelis. The decision is going to be decided by the West and the Middle East. And unless you can get some consensus there, this is going to rage on forever. And it shouldn't be raging on the way it has. So something has to give. But I think that going around university campuses and making Jewish kids, fear for their lives and be locked into rooms, in Sydney, where Jewish kids are being told, maybe don't wear your school uniforms anymore, maybe don't go to school at all because, we're not going to be able to protect you. This is not the Australia that I know and love. It shouldn't happen. And it's completely unacceptable. And I would say the same thing, even if the group that they so-called belong to have done something I don't agree with, that still doesn't mean that the people living here should be attacked for it. I think that that's just totally wrong. And, Pauline Hanson, in her wisdom, she started off by attacking Asians, then she ended up attacking Muslims. Now, some things that she says, I think, have merit. Some things that she says, I think, is a little bit cuckoo. But, all up, she's had a rough time in politics, and I have an immense respect for what she's achieved, despite that rough time. But leaving that aside, one of the things that she talked about was the lack of assimilation into our values. Not so much that you're from somewhere else or you have a different religious belief, but it's a lack of assimilation into our values. And I think that she's very right. It would never occur to me to attack somebody because they happen to share the ethnicity of somebody who is in another country that I'm not from, who's attacking somebody who has the same ethnicity as me in another country that I'm not from. That would just be ludicrous. Like if something happened in India, where I'm like 200 years away from India, something happened over there between the Indians in one group and another. Like, what am I going to start attacking some kid that lives down the road over here that was born here and knows nothing about it? It's just absurd.
Yep.
So I think that we need to get back to that in Australia. Stop this bullshit. Stop attacking everybody. And if you don't know what you're talking about, shut up.
To be honest, we've got enough problems in Australia as it is. We before we start looking internationally, I think we need to fix the problems at home. We've got massive homelessness. Our economy is just in the gurgle. Our debt levels are insanely high. Small businesses are getting screwed over left, right, and centre. So, we've got enough issues in Australia that we should be concerned about.
Do you know what? Okay, I don't go out and mow my neighbour's lawn and leave mine, 4 foot high. I mow mine first, right? And you look after your own first. And that doesn't mean I don't care about others. Doesn't mean I don't care about people from other countries. I absolutely do. I am literally, as I said, my background goes to other countries. So, and like most Australians, we are caring people. But the reality is, you are spot on. We need to look after our own first. And if you come to this country, I don't care. I'm sorry, full stop. You come to this country, contribute to it, right? Don't destroy it. Okay, speak English, right? Do the right thing by people and enhance it rather than come and try and take over and bring, the things you've escaped. Why bring that to us?
Well, I think the issue here really is the fact that, you've got somebody who's associated with international bodies, funding different political agendas in other foreign countries.
Correct.
And I think I don't think anybody has an issue with somebody funding something that they believe in, even if they disagree with what that might be. Sure. But how far do you go with this? When it's there to usurp the authorities within and the sovereignty of those nations, then there's a bigger issue at play here, because this is not just bending a nation to a particular way of thinking or that. It's actually there to disrupt it. And when does it cross the border line of terrorism? I mean, that's the whole issue.
Now, especially when you're dealing with.
I said it on the previous show that we did. I'm just going to say it again. There are certain things that you might advocate for to change the country you live in for the better. But if you genuinely feel this unhappy with Australia or the US or whatever, right, George Soros, if you're so unhappy with the US, why don't you move somewhere else? Like, most people have immigrated to Australia or the US or Canada or whatever from other countries because their parents or grandparents or whoever felt that they would have a better life there, right? Some people were taken by force, but most people have moved voluntarily. If you're really unhappy with this country, move somewhere where you think you'll be happier. Or at least try to move somewhere you think you'll be happier. I was unhappy because I didn't feel like I could do what I wanted to do here in this country in relation to finance. So I went to move to Switzerland, right? Because I felt like I had better opportunities there. Nothing against Australia. It's just I couldn't do what I wanted to do here because of our regulations. So if you feel, oh my God, like, this is horrible, I hate having freedom and I have to respect other people's freedom, this is awful, I'd rather government tell me what to do all the time, that's okay. I think you're delusional, but that's okay. Try to move to a country that's going to do that for you.
Yep. So one thing, with the Israel and the Palestine issue, I've been getting absolutely bombarded with questions about this from a lot of my friends, because some are Middle Eastern, some are African, some are British, and all this sort of stuff. They're from all over the place. So I really don't care what your skin color is.
Thoroughly agree.
And it's really tough because I don't think either sides have clean hands in this one. It annoys me when people say the conflict's only been going on since 1948 or whatever. No, it's been going on for thousands of years. So it's been too many years. I think both hands have their hands dirty. So my question, and the panel can choose not to answer this one, is it time we have the North Korea, South Korea resolution done in Israel and Palestine, where we have an area in the middle which is an absolute no man's land. No one crosses that land.
Sure.
You've got Israel over here, you've got Palestine over there, and if anyone is caught in the middle,
exclusion zone,
you're dead. Like no questions asked, they just shoot you on the spot. So is it time to permanently separate these two countries that have, it's like two warring children. So like when two kids are fighting, what do? You grab them, you separate them, right? You're in that corner, don't talk to each other until you can play along. So is it time that we take that same stance with Israel and Palestine? Because clearly they've had centuries and centuries to sort this shit out, and they haven't done it. So is it time that we just separate the two and say, right, Israel, you stay there, Palestine, you stay there, don't talk to each other?
Well, okay, with that parenting sort of advice, mate, we've got to end the show. So what I'm going to do is quickly throw to Shaq, and I'd actually like the final word to be from Derek. But, thank you very much for everything.
In 10 seconds or less, no, because one, the conflict in North Korea and Korea are totally different. Two, if you're in the exclusion zone, you don't just get shot and killed immediately. But three, most importantly, what you've just suggested is us forcing a two-state solution, which is exactly the issue, which is in contention, right? Is the Palestinians feel, and so the best land's been taken from them, and they're not prepared to accept that. Neither is many of the other countries in the Middle East.
Derek?
I think nations have got to work it out. If you really believe in sovereignty, then they have to work it out between each other. And whatever conflicts we're looking at, I think it's very easy to take sides and jump on there. I think we've got to remember and not lose factors. We're talking about human life here. We're talking about bloodshed, and that's what we've got to think about here.
All right. Well, I'm going to think about this. Thank you very much, guys, for being part of another wonderful show. We're so conservative around here. So what we'll do is we'll call it there. We'll obviously have the replay on Sunday from 5 p.m. Otherwise, we will see you next week from 1 here on Edge Radio Australia for the greater wealth.